Like to thank all those who are listening in, and I'd like to introduce you to my Pick a Book Senior Defense. My name is Brandi. For starters, I'm going to call this part of my life the nonfiction portion. I'm 18 years old, and it's pretty obvious that I like to dye my hair crazy colors, and maybe crazy things happen. My friends are a huge part of my life. Those who see me in the halls will often see me talking to my friends in between classes and hugging people who talk to me. I love them as if they were my own family. Now, what people won't know at face value is the drama. I was named Brandi because my mom really liked alcohol, except it's spelled Brandi instead of Brandy because my mom thought it would be too trashy to go with the latter. My middle name is Lee for my grandmother, and my last name is Ocasio for the man who walked out on us. It did prompt a lot of good things to happen in my life, like my love for stories. I was born in Derby, Connecticut at 3:33 a.m., a cold, moonless night in a blizzard, which prompted my family to say that I was born at ungodly time and joke that I was a witch. Writing and reading has always been a constant in my life. My mom instilled the value of a love of knowledge in me and my sister at a young age. I wrote my first book in my 8th grade year, a 200-page novel about a dystopian future I named Cammed Project. Looking back, the novel isn't very good. I still love it for what it is. For all of its random plot holes and fast-moving everything else, I put a lot of myself into the book. The main character was a captive, queer teenage girl who felt like fighting wasn't worth it at the time. That's who I was when I wrote the book. I wasn't out, and my depression was at its peak. I didn't know who I was, so I made a character about how I felt to cope. Things got better when I found myself attending Common Ground High School, which was, as most good things in life are, a total accident. Let's call this part of my life the contemporary section. Contemporary writing has the similar quality of characters coming to understand themselves and others. That's exactly how I felt at Common Ground. I came out as a freshman, first as a lesbian, but then later as bisexual. I also took control of my education, actively trying to take control of my grades. Through how well I did at Common Ground, I got a lot of opportunities to show my achievement. I interned at the RWA the summer of my senior year, an internship that has actually changed my intended career path, but more on that later. I joined a handful of clubs, including GSA, which I became the representative of my senior year, and Creative Writing Club. Creative writing became a club that I tried to make the most of. I worked with Farran, the teacher leading it, among the active participants to really shape what we did so everyone could be included and feel free to express themselves. Writing should be something that anyone can share, not something to shy away from. Through Common Ground, I learned about what I truly valued in a leader. I feel as though a leader must be many things. A leader is someone who is intelligent, assertive, and passionate. Leadership means giving people under them the necessary environment and tools to succeed and grow into better versions of themselves. Leaders are made. They fight for people who don't have a voice and push to get what's needed. Some leaders I truly look up to who hold these traits are Mary Koppany, Emma Gonzalez, Malala, RBG, and Samir Jha. One of the first times I truly felt like a leader and proved to be my most fulfilling, although frustrating, experience at this school is my involvement with the Creepytown Festival, which showed me the value of the power letter O, ownership. For perhaps obvious reasons, let's call this part the horror genre of my life. Creepytown has devoured the first few months of the school year for the past 3 years. Hope Diamond first started Creepytown as her senior social justice project, used to extend a safe and welcoming environment to people in the community. That year, Bridget, my best friend who was a grade level higher than me, and I were placed in charge of the Children's Garden Scare, which did present its own unique obstacles. Junior year, Bridget and I were asked to be leads of the whole production so the event could continue. This was an incredibly stressful experience in of itself, but was successful and we pulled it off. As Bridget was leaving the next year, we decided to nominate a rising senior and a rising junior to also be leads with me for the next year of Creepytown. From the beginning of September, almost immediately, I felt the strain of not having a lead who could match my work ethic and energy. I had to set up all the meetings and assign heads for the stations. I did blame it on miscommunication on my end of how hard the event would be and tried to allow some time for these two to get used to how intense the workload actually was. I was wrong. They just weren't putting in the work whatsoever. They weren't even listening in meetings. I was reluctant to start issue with the other leads, but I was stretching myself beyond my capabilities. By October, this was obvious. And as we all know, Halloween is on a very specific day at the end of October, and the dates were not going to move because my fellow leads couldn't step up. I was taking 2 college classes, an AP class, had a job, had familiar responsibilities, and was shouldering all the responsibility for an event that I was only supposed to handle a third of. Volunteers and teachers always came to me with their issues. I wondered if anyone even saw my co-leads as people in the same position of power as me. 2 weeks before Creepy Town, there was a final meeting with the leads and heads. I had told my other leads that I couldn't attend because of my college class was at the same time, and they told me they could handle it. I trusted them to do this one thing for the event. Unfortunately, almost immediately after I left the class, volunteers were texting and emailing me about their frustration with the meeting and questioned my responsibility as a leader for not attending the event. It was so frustrating, and I heavily considered quitting and leaving it to my fellow leads to let the event crash and burn under them. I talked about it with my mom and Farran, 2 women I heavily value the opinion of, and they actually both told me I should quit. I didn't do that, though. Why? A group of freshmen had come up to me incredibly excited about the shopping they had done for their stations, and it was that moment when I knew, looking in their shining eyes and their huge smiles, that I wouldn't quit. I kind of found out that really, sometimes you need to put your own needs aside. I learned that to me, a leader was a mentor, someone who offered the tools for success. Who would I be as a leader if I decided things weren't working out for me and I left? As irritating as the experience was for me, the actual event made it worth it. Seeing my volunteers and heads smiling, along with the laughter that followed each scare as people ran away, I knew that it was worth it. I loved it. I loved Halloween, and I loved everything about it. This Creepy Town experience showed me what being a leader is like. The process can be grueling and annoying, but turns out there's a lot of perks in seeing people under you succeed. I cared about how much money we made, which directly correlated to how successful the event was. But at one point when I was running around the event handing out water and food to the volunteers, and everyone telling me how much fun they were having, I decided that I didn't care as much. The first college class I ever took taught me an important lesson, but one I never thought I would, which is why I call this the mystery section. It made me look at the power letter of respect in a whole new way, particularly the importance of self-respect. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be a biology major. I love biology with such a passion that I wanted to do anything I could to jumpstart on my process. For this reason, I signed up for a botany class at Southern. This was going to save me money in the long run and can get me a starting credit. Only good things could come out of it. At least that's what I thought. The first class was painstakingly boring. I expected nothing else from a first class of the semester, as most tend to not be all that intriguing. The second class wasn't much better, however. The teacher just didn't know how to teach. She was an awful lecturer and an even worse lab instructor. The class went on. A week, 2 weeks, 3. Nothing was changing. Nothing was interesting. I didn't know why I was having such a hard time keeping interested. There was a number of times where I just fell asleep in class, which if you've ever had me as a student, you'd know that that was not like me at all. I felt like I was wasting my time. I was learning nothing and I felt conflicted. All my research for schooling was rooted in biology, and now I despise the one class I thought would be amazing. So where did that leave me? Throughout the whole course, we were told our final assignment would need to be an essay reviewing a peer-reviewed document on a botany-related issue. I love writing essays. I've always enjoyed writing, and it's something I'm actually quite good at, except I never put much thought into it as a career. Biology was my route, and literature didn't seem like it could provide me all that much money. Still, writing is something that I knew would spur some type of interest in me. The final grades were to be this final report and a 2-day test. I turned in my essay a week before the class ended and got a 30 out of 30, 100, a perfect score. I wasn't shocked by any means, necessarily. I knew I was a good writer, so I knew I would do fine. But a perfect score had me a bit surprised. When I walked into class to take the first half of my final test, I got a 70%. Not bad, but not good either. The 70% weighed me down a bit. I hated the class. The test wasn't necessarily difficult, just boring. I couldn't force myself to focus. 2 days later, I was supposed to go into class to take the second half. I was definitely going to get around a 70% and could even score a bit lower and still leave the class with a C or a B. Except I didn't take it. I don't feel this made me a martyr by any means. I'm sure my professor never gave me a second thought. I didn't think that me not showing up to the final would make any kind of stand besides her feeling a tinge of annoyance over the dual-enrolled high school student skipping the most important test. What I did do, however, was use my leadership skills to make the decision for myself. This did give me a deeper sense of integrity. My ethical beliefs and needs proved to not line up with what Southern and my teachers were expecting from me. Even if that would have hurt me in the short run, I made a choice for myself. I couldn't force myself into that anymore. I gained respect for myself through this. But now what? It seemed like my dreams for a biology career were crushed. I thought about it a lot, thinking about what I was good at and what I truly loved doing. I still continued writing stories and reading, writing essays and delving into character structure. Maybe it seems obvious to the outside looking in that, duh, English is your passion. Make that your career. Go to college for that. But it was a long internal turmoil on my end. But the mystery soon came to an end and my post-contemporary portion of my life showed itself. My senior project was extending some help to the nature year kids in this hard time. I like giving people help if I could give it, and that's what I did. Through Corona, my original project was kind of destroyed. In fact, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure how to change my idea. What I intended to do was give a presentation to the nature year kids about some nature year activities that they could do and connect themselves with the ground. Instead, I did a short essay piece on what these kids could do to extend themselves into nature to help ease the mind. The link to my piece that was published in the Nature Notes is here. As for what's next, I'm going to Bennington College in Vermont next year to pursue an English degree with an environmental science minor. I want to become an environmental essayist in the future. My experiences at the RWA, along with Creative Writing Club and APLAC, as well as my botany class, shaping this decision. Bennington has decided to open for the fall semester, though with regulations and some distance learning options for students. I will be attending physically in the fall, and I plan on taking 3 variations of English classes as well as an environmental science course. I'm incredibly excited, if not very nervous, but I'm ready to brace myself for the future. I feel prepared. Common Ground has shaped me into an independent, passionate leader, and I'm ready to close this book and open a new one. And with that, any questions?